Good evening, class. This is Robert Riojas, and welcome to the Unit 4 discussion. In this week's discussion, we're going to be talking about thick and thin clients, what my preference is, and some of the uses we have for that in my organization. So, in my organization I work for, which is an aircraft maintenance unit, we use a combination of both. For most of our blue collar workers, we use the thin client, and the white collar usually will use the thick client because we have a lot of engineers and a lot of analysts that use pretty in-depth programs that require the use of a thick system. So in the thin client, like I said, our mechanics will use this type of system to use their technical data to work on aircraft. So no mechanic could ever work on an aircraft without that information. And you can imagine we probably have around 300, not that big of a unit. We have about 300 people that require those resources on a daily basis. And one of the better ways we found to do that was through the thin client, and which is managed by the server. Thin client is a lot easier to manage, um, but there is one thing that we learned the hard way about, and it is the single point of failure. So when we first transitioned to that, we did have an incident where our server went down that housed all that technical information, and our mechanics could not access it for a couple of days. So we learned the hard way to have a backup available in case that kind of thing popped up, and also a plan, a written down plan, so other people when they come into the office will know what to do if that does happen. Uh, it, at first, the upfront cost was a little more because we had to transition to that system. But once we had it up and running, it was really easy to manage from there. We just had to load up stuff on that server, and it would push it down to those other to the end user point or the end users. Pretty simple. The thick clients are a little more difficult because they do have their own hard drives. So we would have people that have hard drive failures, and to re-image and put the computer back on the network took a lot longer than simply replacing a thin client, where you actually control the resources that the user has available to them. So all in all, I guess it really depends on what your business is, what type of access your employees need, which will ultimately decide whether you use a thick or thin. But in my case, I'm more of the fan of the thin clients because it's easier to maintain, and you could modify what the users have access to just simply by modifying the server. But like I said, if you do use that system, keep in mind that the single point of failure can cause some issues with access to your systems. That is ultimately another issue too, because if your connection goes out, you'll have to rely on your client side, or not on your client side, on your thick on your server side programming. So you lose all your applications, or you can't really do anything. Where if you have like a PC hooked up with the more of the client side stuff, you will have access to your own programs. You go work offline, that kind of thing. So those are all things to think about when you're ultimately deciding what you want to do in your organization. But all in all, I think that a mixture of both has worked well for us. And as long as you have a plan for those situations that can arise and network outage issues, you should be okay. Thank you for watching.